Hello world, this is Cinema Steph, and I'm here to review X-Men Days of Future Past. As you probably know, this movie just came out this past weekend, and it's directed by Bryan Singer, who did the first two X-Men movies. This is a movie that I was super excited about because it has, not specifically because of the time travel element, which is a major part of the plot, but because it features the casts of both the original X-Men movies with Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, and Hugh Jackman, of course, who's in, every one. And then also the newer cast, the younger versions, with James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and Jennifer Lawrence. So, this is a movie I was super excited about, and it didn't disappoint. But it's just that I get overly excited about the X-Men franchise. It's one of my favorite franchises, and so I just got a little too excited. But the movie overall is very enjoyable, and not too special effects heavy, but the special effects that you get are very cool. So the premise is that there are these Sentinels, which are these giant robots that are killing off the mutants and people who support the mutants, and so there's this dystopian future. It kind of looks like something out of the original Terminator movie, actually, where it's just this horrible, like charred world with all these robots flying around and whatever. But so you have this band of mutants, which includes Iceman, what's her real name? Kitty. Kitty Pryde, Ellen Page's character. You got Colossus, Logan, Magneto, Professor X, and then you have a cast of new characters whose special powers aren't really explained, but you have, you can kind of pick up on them. There's a girl, Blink, who does this kind of portal thing, like the game. I don't know, she makes all these portals and confuses things. You've got Sunspot, who radiates fire, basically. You've got, who else? Warpath, who, I guess, they didn't really explain his power, except that I guess he can kind of do this, out-of-body thing where he can see really far away. But other than that, he just has a knife, so not the best fighting ability, but good as a kind of a sentry type person. And there's another character whose name I can't remember, because they didn't really introduce them, as I said. They just kind of throw us in, and there are these characters, and if I hadn't read about them, I wouldn't know their names. But I believe he's played by Omar Sy, or however you pronounce his name. And he, absorbs the other mutants' powers into, a gun that he can then shoot. So I don't know if that's, I guess, technology, kind of like how Cyclops had his, sunglasses, visor thing that could harness his energy. I think that's it for the new characters in the future. But anyway, so they, Kitty can, last we knew she could walk through walls and whatever, but it turns out apparently she can also send people's consciousnesses back into their old bodies, so not physically sending the body back in time, so you don't have two of any character at one time, but they're able to send Logan back into the 70s to stop Mystique from causing the chain of events that leads to the Sentinels being developed. So, so Logan is sent back into his younger body, and so he doesn't have the adamantium yet, which it's kind of funny because he's kind of surprised by that. And I want to say one thing about Logan that I guess did kind of disappoint me. It's now some people I guess grew tired of him being all surly and whatever, but that's supposed to be his character, and I know he has his character's grown and whatever through the movies, but he should still be this surly, hot-tempered guy, and it seems like he's kind of been tamed. It's more like he's just kind of sarcastic, and I don't know, he's just not the same Wolverine that we got in the first two Bryan Singer movies. So I guess I was a little disappointed with that. But I loved that we get James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender back. And Professor X is in the 70s. He's given up on the school. He's hanging out with Beast, and Beast has created a way for him to use his legs again, but as you'll find out in the movie, it has a cost to that. Anyway, so there's this new character that Logan supposedly knows, even though we've never met him in any of the other movies, and his name is Quicksilver, and it turns out that he's actually related to one of the other mutants, but, and they hint pretty heavily at that, but don't really explore that as well as they could. But so this Quicksilver guy can run really, really fast, and so it's like to him the world is slowed down, and like to a snail's pace, and it's really, really awesome the way they do that. His character's funny, the comic timing is great, and then they get this really cool sequence for him with the special effects where they actually just had this camera that was going, it was like 3,000 frames per second or something, as opposed to the normal, 24. So the way they did that was just awesome, and I wish that they had brought him back later in the movie, because it looked like they might, and then they didn't. And so that was also kind of disappointing, but so the plot is basically that Logan needs to get Charles and Eric back together, and they need to convince Mystique not to kill the guy who creates the Sentinels, whose name is Trask. And he's played by Peter Dinklage, who does, an excellent job. The role is, I don't know, nothing spectacular. He doesn't seem like a particularly evil dude, but he has been experimenting on mutants, which is, not cool, and killing them, and is trying to convince the politicians, who seem to always be a problem in these X-Men movies. But anyway, so he's trying to convince them to fund his program with the Sentinels. And so throughout the movie, we get a lot of allusions to the other movies, or little references, like, listing off names of characters that we'd previously met. And then we also get some cameos, which took me completely by surprise, because I thought a lot of those actors were not actually going to be in this movie, according to some of the articles I'd read. Sorry, I'm losing my voice now. Anyway, but I loved the ending. It sets up, it has a great potential for future movies with the old cast or the new cast. And I really did enjoy the movie. As I said, I just wish there was more of Quicksilver, and I wish that Logan was more the way that he originally was, instead of being this guy who's kind of just amused by everything. Oh, and also Stryker shows up again. You'll probably remember that name from X-Men 2 and the Wolverine Origins one. Played by a different actor every time, but you get to see a young William Stryker, who it kind of messes with Logan, shakes him up a bit. But I really liked the way they worked it out. Took me a little bit to wrap my head around the ending, but I approve of it. And if you stay till the end credits, there is an extra scene with a character I'm not familiar with, presumably a villain. And, yeah, I really liked the movie, even though I had those minor disappointments, and I'd give it a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. I hope you enjoy it. This has been Cinema Steph.